Just to refresh your memory, here's the story up to this point. If Monson thought orientation was bad, it's a cakewalk compared to the morning of the first day of school. Between stumbling into the insanely famous pop idol Taurus Green and Casey's Superman-like abilities, the first day of school is already turning into an ordeal. The three boys now head out of the GM to finalize their class schedules. Hopefully, the morning's events are the only crazy things that happen today, but who knows what drama will unfold next. What the hell was that all about? After the scene with Kylie, Casey beelined it to the nearest bathroom and was now letting out a steady stream of curses as he punched everything in sight. The other two allowed him to do this, standing a ways off, talking quietly. "Those two have a history, if you can't tell." "Yeah, I figured as much." Monson looked towards Casey in the corner. "Who would have thought she could have had that kind of effect? Do you know what happened?" Artorius hesitated. "Yes, I do. Up to a point, at least." Monson continued to look at him as if to say, "Well?" He hesitated again. I'm not sure." Monson stopped him. "No, you're right. I should talk to Casey about this." Monson berated himself inwardly. He had to earn trust, not take it. Artorius looked sympathetic. "Don't worry about it. It's not even what you think. You're our friend." Monson smiled, turning away as something caught in his throat. Casey's ranting interrupted Monson's thoughts, and he looked towards him. Maybe he would try the direct approach. "Hey, Case, what's up with you and Kylie? Why all the bad blood?" The bathroom went silent. Monson wondered if he upset Casey. "Bro, she's evil." Casey's voice echoed from across the bathroom. "Totally and utterly evil. Nuff said." With this, Casey went back into his ranting. This continued for a few more moments until suddenly it stopped. He strode towards them out of breath and slightly red-faced, but otherwise seemingly all right. "Are we back to normal?" Artorius looked at Casey with a calm expression on his face. "Do you have it all out of your system now?" "Yeah, bro, I'm good. Although, I still have these." He held out a pair of slightly shaded sunglasses that Monson recognized as Kylie's. "Whoa, that's amazing!" Monson stared dumbfounded at the glasses. "When'd you nick those?" "Dude, nick?" Casey's face was slightly malicious as he posed the question, but his tone sounded playful. It was apparent he was quickly returning to normal, or at least trying. "Shut up, Casey." Casey laughed. It sounded a bit forced, but he answered the question nonetheless. "Dude, I caught them before I went for her. Now, I just gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with them." He lapsed into silent thought. "Well, what are you going to do with them?" "Dunno, bro. But I'm pretty sure it's gonna have something to do with a skeet thrower and a shotgun." "Come on." Artorius checked his watch. "We'd better hurry, or we ain't gonna get no food. And who can think on an empty stomach?" "I wasn't aware you could think at all, Arthur," said Casey with mock astonishment. "Wow, this certainly is a day of discovery." "How many times do I have to tell you, Cassius? Don't call me Arthur." Monson could only laugh as Casey and Artorius went into wild teasing. Although Monson was laughing at Casey and Artorius' increasingly outrageous points and counterpoint, his mind continued to race, mulling over what he witnessed between Kylie and Casey. Casey did not come out and say it, but whatever Kylie did to him, it was more than just a simple parting of ways. He needed more information to form a proper conclusion. He would just have to pay attention to Casey over the next few days to see if he could glean more. With that thought, his attention shifted fully to Casey and Artorius. It did not take long for the boys to find their way to the mess hall, despite the size of the GM. A lighted wall map, like the one found in a mall or shopping center, showed that the cafeteria was at the very center of the building. They headed in that direction, falling in line behind a group of older girls who gave the boys no notice at all. "This is a bit more like it." Artorius gazed around the hall. All that grandeur was beginning to get on my nerves. "He's certainly right about that," thought Monson. He really did enjoy the building design at Collin, but it was a little overwhelming. He half expected to see some grand dining area after all the money spent on the Colosseum and the barracks. Thankfully, that was not the case. "Don't get too excited, Arthur. My uncle told me that they have a formal banquet room for dances and stuff like that." "Yeah, but we don't have to worry about that today. And don't call me Arthur," he added as an afterthought. The line moved as more and more of the older students got their food, ate, and then made their way out of the various exits from the cafeteria. Monson could only assume these other students were heading to their first periods. Thinking this as he watched them leave, something struck him.
"So, when do we get our schedules? I don't remember them saying anything about it."
He looked towards Casey and Artorius, even though Artorius was not paying any attention, but rather staring around the hall as if he were looking for someone. "Right after breakfast, bro." Casey did not look at Monson as he said this. He noticed that he was still playing with the slightly shaded sunglasses. "Dude, it was like Mr. Gatz said. All the freshmen will hang out here, and then we'll choose our optional courses and be on our way." Their conversation abruptly stopped as they retrieved trays and started helping themselves to food. The food seemed normal enough, but hearty and expertly cooked. Applewood smoked bacon, eggs Benedict, cream cheese stuffed French toast, English muffins with marmalade, seasoned hash browns, and an assortment of other items like fruit and cereal were all available. The boys took full advantage of the buffet. Breakfast was good, yet uneventful, and before they knew it, they had cleaned their plates. An announcement told them that the freshmen were to make their way towards the main conference room of the GM. Monson and the others did so, excited to see what classes the school had to offer. The boys took a left almost immediately upon exiting double doors leading from the mess hall. There were many other students, and from the looks of them, they were freshmen as well. They followed the other freshmen along corridors and hallways until they reached a second set of doors, decorated with two highly detailed griffins. Monson examined them and felt they were a little on the tacky side. He noticed a young man in a wheelchair having problems opening the doors. Apparently, Collin missed the memo on disabled person-friendly entrances and exits. Monson, seeing this, ran forward and pulled him back. With his hands still on the handlebars, he leaned around so the boy could see him. "Hey, let me help you." "I don't need any help," snapped the boy angrily. He looked around at the crowd. "I can do it myself." "Whoa, touchy," thought Monson, taking his hands off the boy's chair. "Do you mind if we go first, then? We don't want to be late." "Whatever." Monson grabbed the door, propped it so it would stay open, and gave the boy in the wheelchair a little nod as he continued into the auditorium. The Gates Auditorium did not quite emanate the same level of haughty superiority as the Caesar-like Colosseum, but it was close. Rumor had it that Bill Gates was a former student of Collin and donated the money for the auditorium, though Molly could never find anything to confirm that. The large room had the same basic layout of the Colosseum, if on a much smaller scale. There were some noticeable differences. In place of the raised platform in the center of the auditorium were 3 large tables with some makeshift cubicles off to the left. Above the cubicles was a large sign that read, "Start Here," with a huge arrow pointing to a line of tape marked on the floor. There was already a fairly long line forming up the length of the aisle and leading down to the cubicles. Monson could see students talking to what he assumed were Corn's staff of some sort. Casey gestured to the rapidly growing line of people. "Here's as good a place as any." An older student who appeared to be directing the freshman traffic stopped them. The boy pointed at Monson. "Your friends can continue on down there, but you need to step over to the side." His words felt tainted, as if he were trying to hold back how he really felt about the school, Monson, and just about everything else. "Why?" Monson was surprised at the tone in the boy's voice. All members of the Legion meet with Coach Abel before they finalize their schedule. Monson could tell that he was trying to conceal a sneer. The boy obviously did not care for him. Thank you very much. You've been very forthcoming and truly helpful. He gave the older boy a small, cocky wink and stepped aside as directed, overemphasizing his actions. Casey, who was standing right next to Monson, watched the whole exchange with amusement. He snickered openly at Monson's actions. The older boy noticed this and flashed him an angry look in response. Casey gave him a cheesy grin. Artorius, hanging back to talk to a couple of girls, had not been aware of the exchange. Something must have caught his attention, however, as he was now hurrying towards them, apprehension on his face. Hey, what's all that about? I don't know. Something has this guy's shorts in a twist. Monson did not like that boy. He did not care if the boy was older, cooler, better looking, or whatever. People who acted as if they were better than others really bugged him. That doesn't mean you have to rise to him. I think that depends. The sound of his own last name caught his attention effectively, cutting him off. Grey! Monson heard a husky, slightly hoarse voice. You're up! A small man at the last cubicle was standing halfway out looking at Monson. He beckoned him towards the cubicles. A bit smaller than Monson, he had an emaciated, slightly feverish look to him. His balding head held remnants of mousy brown hair and a wicked scar on the top. His voice seemed to counteract his appearance. When he spoke, he did not sound weak at all. His voice was sharp and clear, with a definite air of command. Grey, don't just stand there. Move it. This shouldn't take that long. Monson moved slowly towards one of the two chairs now visible within the cubicle. He sat down and waited for the man to speak. The man sat down opposite of him, his legs cramped behind the too small space. He pulled out a yellow folder from a file cabinet in the corner of the cubicle. After closing the drawer of the cabinet, he took up the yellow file and started to flip through it lazily. It was some time before he spoke. So, as a member of the Legion, it's mandatory to take some type of physical education class. His eyes never left the paper. Most athletes use their 6th period for this, though. You can choose another if you want. No, that's fine. I do, however, want to know if I have to be a part of this Legion that everyone keeps talking about, or is it something that I can just forego? Then, in an even quieter voice, I've never been much into sports. Of course you'll have to be a part of it. Why, I remember when I was your age, I was ecstatic to be an honorary part of this team. The man looked infuriated. It's part of your scholarship. People are expecting to see you there. Looking forward to it. He tried to keep his voice down. So, what exactly do I have to do? Nothing really. The man sounded as if he was working very hard to control the tone in his voice. The Diamond will pretty much take care of us. Best quarterback we had in years. I designed our entire offense around him. The running backs as well. Monson's mind started to wander as the man's voice washed over him, talking about how amazing the Legion is and what an honor it was to be a part of it. He was only half listening when it happened. He felt a twinge shoot through his body, almost like a shiver. It coursed through him, acutely seizing what little attention Monson was giving to Coach Abel. In that moment, he felt sharper, as if his senses were extra aware, extra keen. He gave a start as he was startled back to full awareness. What now? Thought Monson as he placed his hand on his upper chest. He felt the thin chain under his school uniform, the chain that Molly gave him, which held the silver gem that belonged to his grandfather. His chest felt hot, like it was on fire. Grey! Monson heard the man's voice as though it was a great distance away. You even listening? Yeah, of course, lied Monson, righting himself. Then we're agreed? Sure, why not? Monson was really wishing he knew what he was agreeing to. Knowing his luck, he was going to end up goat herding in the Sahara. Excellent. Now, there's just one matter of your 5th period. I would suggest a conditioning course as most of the... Actually, I already know what class I want for my 5th period.
Really?
The man looked slightly annoyed at the interruption.
And what might that be?
His tone made it obvious that he was not used to students voicing their opinion when making their schedule. Monson realized the coach was used to dealing with people that cared about football, and he certainly did not. Well, Monson tried to keep his tone pleasant. I heard Professor Gatt has an analytical history course. I'd like to take that. He already said it would be okay. The balding, mousy-haired man cocked his head in a very curious gesture, which Monson took as a "you gotta be kidding me" look. Monson did not care. After all, he won his scholarship from history. He might as well stay with that, as it would probably be an easy A. He also found that ignoring this man's advice was proving entertaining and satisfying in itself.
It should be said.
Coach Abel eyed Monson for a reaction.
You understand it'll be very hard for you to get any playing time, being a freshman and all. We've never had a freshman on the Legion, or a freshman Hornveer for that matter. If you want to get in at all this season, you should really take 5th period conditioning.
He said it as if it cost him a great deal.
Monson did not speak, a second realization finally hitting him.
A voice inside his head was speaking very fast.
The coach doesn't want me in the weight training course, let alone the conditioning course. He's acting out of tradition as much as anyone else here.
Monson decided to put the coach's mind at ease. Coach Abel, that's who you are, I assume. You never did introduce yourself. Listen, I have very little interest in playing for the Legion. I also happen to know you have very little interest in trying to get me to play for the Legion. A final realization fully came to him. In fact, you're still bothered about how I got into this school in the first place. That I can't answer for you, but let me assure you that I have no intention of doing anything to mess with the Legion. So, in the interest of time, let's drop the pretenses that you really want me here. Monson concluded his speech with a wry smile that almost instantly turned to a poorly concealed scowl. Why did he always do that? He really needed to replace the filter between his mouth and brain. He waited for Coach Abel's response. To his utter astonishment, Coach Abel started to laugh.
I heard you were a kid that got straight to the point, but I never expected this.
The coach adjusted himself in the seat, becoming noticeably more relaxed.
I'm glad to know you and I are on the same page, Gray. It's good to know that even though you aren't an athlete, at least you got a good brain in that head of yours.
Thanks, I think. Coach Abel started speaking as if he suddenly remembered something.
Now, it's going to be important that you still show up. We have to find something on this team for you to do as well.
He put his hands together and started to rub them slightly, apparently thinking.
We'll figure something out that'll work for both of us.
Coach Abel? Monson's voice was quiet, reflecting his confusion. Maybe I missed something. Why exactly do you have to find something for me to do on the team? Coach Abel narrowed his eyes and looked at Monson suspiciously, scanning his face, looking for something. Unsure of what to do, Monson sat there and waited for him to answer.
Gray, when you won this scholarship, did you read any of the information that was sent your way?
Why did people keep asking him that? Of course I did. But it's not like I went through it with a fine-tooth comb. Almost as an afterthought, he added, Besides, I was slightly sidetracked. That was not exactly true, but he really did not want to go into it with this man. Unbelievable as it was, Coach Abel had enough tact not to inquire further. He just stared at Monson for a moment. His gaze softened.
Your scholarship is one of the most highly publicized,
he struggled to find the word,
things out there. First game of the year, people aren't going to come just because of our kicking defense or unstoppable halfbacks and our amazing quarterback. They'll come because of you. You're the first freshman in history to win the Hornveer All-Inclusive Scholarship, and there's almost nothing known about you.
He stopped at that and started to rub his hands together again, like they were cold and he was trying to warm them up. He looked like he was debating within himself.
In other words, we need you to at least suit up or the school will receive more bad publicity.
Now, isn't that interesting? Monson thought. He spaced out for a moment, looking thoughtful. For some reason, his actions seemed to make Coach Abel very nervous. So what you're saying is that you need me, and you want me to do you a favor.
Gray, what is it you're concocting in that little head of yours?
Oh, sorry. Monson had a sudden stroke of genius. Coach Abel, I think you and I are in a place to help each other. Do you have a minute? "30 minutes later, schedules in hand, Artorius and Casey tried to catch up with Monson, who was a ways down the hall.
So your session with Coach Abel started out pretty rocky, huh?
Monson answered with a self-satisfied smile. Yeah, it did. How'd you know?
I was listening to the first half of your conversation, but had to leave partway through. I saw him afterwards, man. He had a huge smile on his face. Things obviously turned for the better. What'd you do, give him a lap dance?
Casey, you're so witty and cantankerous, I can hardly stand it. Monson paused as he did his best to sound calm. It was very difficult to restrain his excitement. It was okay. He just wanted to know what I was planning on doing with this unique position of mine. Artorius finally fell into step beside the two.
What are you planning on doing? Are you even going to play for the Legion?
No.
Well, then why are you in such a good mood? I mean, he basically told you that not only were you unwelcome to Collin as Hornveer, but that you could single-handedly destroy the Legion as we know it. Why are you so calm?
Well, that's simple enough to explain. There was a moment of silence as the boys continued to quicken their pace, trying to make it to their first class. Artorius suddenly stopped directly in front of Monson.
Well, are you going to tell us what happened or not?
Oh, you wanted to know what we talked about? A huge smile stretched the length of his face. Okay, I told Coach Abel that I wouldn't try and claim my position on the team and would do my little PR dance if he would give you two a private tryout. So, you two goofballs better not screw this up or I'm going to have to kick you both in the teeth. With that, Monson strolled past his two new friends, their looks of shock and amazement chiseled into place. When they finally snapped out of their reverie, Monson was halfway down the hall. Casey and Artorius moved as fast as they could without actually running. They caught up to him as he started to round the corner to a hallway that was covered on two sides with a kind of glossy blue speckled tile. Casey caught Monson's arm.
All right, bro, spit it out. How on this green earth did you pull that off?
Really? You think so? Because I'm pretty sure that the earth is covered up with mostly water, which, I could be wrong, is more of a blue color, but...
Monson, out with it already.
Okay, keep your pants on. It really wasn't that hard. He wanted me to do my public relations thing, and I told him that I wanted something in return. That was the arrangement we came to. You guys get a special tryout, and I do what he asks. Simple.
That was ballsy, bro. Do you know what that man could do to you?
Give me the same ridiculous haircut?
Dude, stop joking around. Do you realize how serious this is?
No, actually I don't. You guys seriously need to relax. Do you really want to know how I was able to pull that off? They both nodded. It's because I don't care. There's nothing that he can do to me that would make any difference. I'm here on an academic scholarship, not sports. Mind you, I got out of the hospital like a few weeks ago, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't play. If they want me to do them favors, then they're going to do it my way.
Your way? Seriously, what does that mean? What are you actually going to do?
What am I going to do? Monson laughed. That's easy. I'm going to go to practice and watch you guys do your thing, drink some sports drinks, and flirt with the trainer girls. In return, you guys get the chance to run with the big boys. I hope you don't disappoint me. Both Casey and Artorius continued to look at him, dumbfounded and completely astonished at his actions. They probably thought he was borderline crazy. Monson smiled at the look on their faces. He turned from them and hurried on.
Well, Arthur, it looks like something good has finally come from your stupidity.
He struggled to catch up with Monson.
If you hadn't mistaken Grey for me, we might have never met him.
Artorius nodded in agreement.
Yeah, we were pretty lucky on that one.
Monson glanced over his shoulder.
I'd say fortunate. Though you must have really been out of it, Arthur. How on earth did you mistake me for Casey? We look nothing alike.
Artorius just shrugged.
Who knows? I really wasn't feeling myself yesterday.
It's to be expected, bro.
Casey had a knowing look on his face.
You were probably just nervous, dude. I didn't sleep at all the entire week leading up to orientation. My uncle was almost unbearable. I almost stabbed myself in the ears just so I wouldn't have to listen to the dude.
Ditto. Monson said it, though it was not entirely true.
I suppose you're right.
Artorius still looked unsure but satisfied. He started shifting his gaze from side to side, a hint of concerned contemplation making its way onto his face.
I don't think this is right, guys. Are you sure this is the correct corridor?
Dude, has to be.
Casey pulled out a small map of the GM.
It just has to be, man. You see, we started here.
Monson let his attention slip as Casey and Artorius tried to figure out where they were. He allowed himself a selfish moment, not being able to help feeling pleased with himself. He found that his battle with Coach Abel had left him with an untouchable feeling, like no matter what he did, he would come out victorious. He knew that it was not a huge victory, that Coach Abel was probably on the better end of their little deal. However, his successes in the past couple of months were rare. He needed this. Besides, it's not very often you have the opportunity to almost totally disregard a teacher's power trip and turn it to your favor. It also seemed like he earned Casey and Artorius' undying loyalty and respect, which was also a good thing. That feeling of triumph in tow, the three boys continued to make their way towards their first class, Casey and Artorius finally figuring out the correct route. It was terribly confusing. Just the sheer size of the GM with its maze-like corridors was enough to make even the older students lose their way occasionally, let alone newbies like them. After another 10 minutes of searching, the boys finally thought they would ask someone. A large group of older boys was lounging around one of the large circular tables next to the entrance of one of the many gymnasiums in the GM. They seemed not to be doing anything in particular. Monson wondered for a second if they were skipping class. He thought it would be better not to ask. He counted 4 of them. A set of twin brothers, who looked like they may have come from India, stood leaning against the wall. A large round-faced boy who had more chins than he did hands sat in the table eating copious amounts of some sort of food. Lastly, a weedy-looking boy who would not be out of place in a police lineup sat on a table in a sort of reclined position. This last one's attention was shifting, like he was waiting for some sort of meeting and not simply skipping class.
Well, look what we have here.
The weedy-looking boy glared at the younger ones.
Fresh meat. I mean, freshmen.
He laughed at his own joke, though no one else did, including his friends.
Wow, where'd you get that joke? 1985? I mean, come on, you couldn't have come up with anything better than that?
The boy's eyes constricted as he grinned. Monson just returned the look and tried to keep his face passive, silently scolding himself for his forked tongue. Suddenly, it was as if the group of older boys seemed to multiply out of nowhere. Were they hiding, waiting for just such an opportunity? Or had they always been there the whole time? Molly's words, spoke to him not even a few days ago, came sharply back to his mind. They have had some problems with hazing, so when you get there, make sure you do not give the older boys a reason to give you a hard time. Oh, how he wished he had listened. Curse his wretched tongue. The crowd of older boys moved in around Monson and his 2 friends, as the same weedy-looking boy again started to speak, except now he was no longer laughing and no longer smiling.
Hey, freshman, don't you know you're not allowed down this hall? Oh, sorry, bro.
Casey sounded polite and contrite, as if he wanted only to rectify a misunderstanding. Actually, he sounded a little too contrite.
Dude, we didn't realize that this was your hallway.
I don't like the sound of your tone. You should be a little more respectful when...
Well, you shouldn't like my tone.
Casey's voice was equally polite.
It's called sarcasm, bro. Look it up. It's a good one to know.
You have quite the mouth on you, freshman.
The weedy-looking boy glared at Casey.
I think we may have to teach you some manners.
That simple comment was just enough to cause a dramatic change in the atmosphere surrounding the encounter. The older boy's anger seemed to reach a boiling point.
Whoa, this could get really ugly really quick,
Monson thought.
Not good.
Monson took a step back, trying to make some space between himself and the senior boys. They, however, were not going to give up that easily. As Monson took a step back, they merely took a step forward. The situation was volatile at best. One wrong move here could turn it. Monson was not particularly scared of a fight. After the horrors of his dreams, the threats of a bunch of rich kids pretending to be thugs did not mean much to him. The three boys were, however, outnumbered, and it probably was not the best idea to get into a fight on the first day of school. Furthermore, guessing from his experience the day before, Monson thought his two friends might do something crazy like pull out sticks and start beating people indiscriminately. Considering Casey's freakish strength, that could be bad. Trying to talk his way out of this was probably his best bet. They did not have anything against him personally, right? The tension was high, but distraction and relief arrived in the form of a second group of students. There was a good number of them. Many girls lined the hall, most of them wearing their uniform artfully, making it just a bit more revealing than the school code probably allowed. Directly behind them was an assortment of boys who could find work as bouncers at a bar or club if they ever were kicked out of school. Patches of younger and smaller boys who looked like lackeys of some sort teetered around, walking close enough to the group that people noticed, but far enough away that their presence was ignorable until needed. The group revolved around a tall boy who was basking in the admiration of foreign-looking twin girls who hung on each arm. Monson watched him for a minute as the crowd gave the boy their undivided attention. His brown hair was untidy, but strategically so, as if he had spent a great deal of time making it look so messy. He was wearing slightly shaded sunglasses, not unlike the ones Casey picked up from Kylie. His shirt was unbuttoned to just above mid-chest. While Monson could only assume that he was trying to look cool, he was not quite sure that he pulled it off. The new boy looked at the weedy-looking kid.
Mahler, care to explain?
What do you want, Derek?
Mahler's eyes tightened. This doesn't concern you.
You're in my hallway. Or did you forget who you were talking to?
Excuse me. Monson cut across Mahler, who looked absolutely livid. I hate to interrupt this riveting display of manhood, but seeing as we have nothing to do with this, we're just going to be on our way.
And who are you?
Derek turned his attention to Monson with a barely concealed disdain. It went quiet suddenly. Very quiet considering the amount of people now in the narrow hallway. Monson gave Derek a polite smile. You know, it's rude to ask someone for their name without offering your own. The boy looked like he was going to laugh for a moment, as if Monson had done something raucously inappropriate. All he managed was a smile, which did not move to his eyes. They remained cold and calculating.
You must be new, and judging by your appearance, a shipper to boot.
He looked back at his followers as if they should join in the joke.
So, allow me to inform you on the Roman custom of greetings. When someone of a higher status honors you by speaking first in greeting or interrogation, it's customary to answer with your name and occupation, thus showing the proper respect to your superior.
Really? Are you suggesting that you have greater status than I do? Monson knew he was being vicious. It was obvious what the boy was implying, but he was not one to back down, not in a situation like this.
I would have thought that was apparent.
The boy gave another raptor-like smile.
You know what they say, when in Rome.
He left the idiom hanging. Monson looked thoughtfully at Derek. You know, that's funny. I've never heard of that custom. What period is it from? Derek's smile faded a bit, but he did not say anything immediately.
Well,
Oh, don't tell me that you're just spouting something you heard. Please don't say you don't even know where the custom came from or why they had it.
It was from the early part of the Roman Republic. I would have
AD or BC?
AD.
Derek's smirk was becoming outrageous. Oh, now you're just guessing. If you don't know, why not just say so?
Why, you little...
For your information, Monson cut across him a third time. The Roman Republic only existed in the BC. Julius Caesar overthrew it in the mid-part of the 2nd century. From that point on, it was an empire, which existed in the west in Rome until the 5th century, and in the east in Constantinople until the 14th. Just in case you didn't know. Oh, and there never was a custom of greeting in the Roman caste system. Most of the time, the senators and other important figures didn't even acknowledge the commoners, let alone actually speak to them. What you're spouting is probably some jumped-up school tradition created to make the upperclassmen happy or to help other special individuals like yourself feel important. And while we're on the subject, we aren't in Rome, so I hope you'll forgive me for not doing what the Romans do, seeing as you really don't know anyway. A silence so thick you could almost feel it settled on the crowd of students. Derek looked like someone backhanded him, while Mahler and his group of friends gazed on in shock. Monson wondered if he had gone too far and was now going to have to fight his way out. He looked at the arrogant jerk in front of him as he considered the prospect of having the crap beat out of him on the first day of school. Yeah, totally worth it, Monson thought. Might as well finish it properly. My name is Monson Grey. Nice to meet you. Monson gave a little bow. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think my friends and I are going to be late for class. He started to move past Derek, but Derek slammed a hand against the wall in front of him, blocking his path. Grey, you say? As in, new Horum Vir. That's right. Derek bent down and looked at Monson right in the eye, appraising him. He looked incredibly angry for some reason, far angrier than before when Monson insulted him. Monson could not help but wonder why. It was like Monson insulted his mother or something. These seemed like the kind of people that would work themselves up over something like that. Derek especially. He seemed like the kind of guy only a mother could love. Maybe he had an Oedipus complex. Monson silently reminded himself that this was not the time to be making jokes. Derek leaned even closer, speaking softly. How did you do it? The whisper sounded deadly, venomous even. It surprised Monson. How did you steal what was supposed to be mine? I beg your pardon? Monson's eyes remained locked on Derek. Behind him, he could feel Casey and Artorius' tension as they edged closer to him, hopefully intending to pry the older boy off Monson should he attack. What do you think you're doing? Said a vaguely familiar voice. Yes, thought Monson in barely contained relief. Everyone, including Derek, who flushed bright red, apparently recognizing the voice, turned to see its owner. Monson did not have a clear view as the person was standing just on the other side of Derek's groupies, but he was sure that finally someone was going to come through for him, maybe a teacher or, better yet, a security guard. The groupies, however, were all taller than he was. He could not see who said it. A group of somewhat familiar upperclassmen girls was now standing sprawled across the hall, spectating, discontentment on their faces. They looked incensed, almost as if they could not imagine something like this ever happening at their school. Monson, thankful for the distraction, turned about to make his exit when someone spoke to him. Don't tell me you're not happy to see me. A soft hand caught his, which instinctively made him turn around. He saw a field of strawberry blonde hair and bright green eyes. Taurus Green was standing in front of him. Monson marveled. The girl came totally out of nowhere. So, we meet again. She gave him a soft smile. You seem to have a knack for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Monson returned her smile with one of his own. You aren't telling me anything I don't know. I was just about to make my escape. Care to join me?" She laughed. This laugh sounded slightly different from her other laughs earlier that day. It was a nice sound. He could tell it was coming from deep within her. It sounded breathy, and he thought there was a touch of hiccup mixed into the giggling. "I think this time, you are hitting on me, Mr. Grey." "Well, can you blame me? I hope you won't hold it against me." "I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you two know each other?" "For sure." Taurus still smiled at Monson, not turning to look at Derek, a fact not wasted on him. "Mr. Grey and I go way back." "Oh, yeah." Monson tried not to laugh. "Way back." Derek continued to eye them suspiciously. Before he could say anything else, Taurus opened her bag. "Oh, I have something for you." She pulled out a small box. "It's part of your reward. I don't know if you already have one, but the school provides this one so they can always get a hold of you." She handed the box to Monson. "Sorry I didn't give it to you earlier." Monson opened it. It was a bit embarrassing with everyone watching. "A cell phone? Why would I need one of these?" Taurus shrugged. "I'm just the student sentence messenger. I just do what I'm told." "You just do as you're told? I find that hard to believe." She stuck her tongue out at him playfully. Monson, absent-mindedly, pulled out the phone and turned it on. It was a very nice phone as far as cell phones go. Thin, black, and slick. The phone even greeted him by name when he turned it on. The whole thing was touchscreen-based, with what looked like dozens of different features. He played with it for a moment when something caught his eye. "Hey, I already have someone's number in here. Isn't this a new phone? Why would it have a number in it?" "Oh, don't worry about that." Taurus took a step closer to him. Behind her, Monson could see Derek's fists ball up as if he was going to punch someone. "I put my number in your phone. You know, in case you have any questions." The effect of this simple gesture was profound, more profound than anyone could have expected. The twin boys on the wall that thus far had not uttered a single word started to whisper to each other with hurried voices in a language no one seemed to understand. Mahler whistled and looked spitefully at Derek. Derek, on the other hand, did not look well. His face was red, like his brain was going to shoot right out of the top of his head. All the girls, both the ones with Derek and Taurus's friends, just looked dumbfounded. Monson looked, surveying all their reactions. He suddenly had the feeling that everyone in the room wanted to hurt him, all for different reasons, though. It was not a pleasant experience. He raised the phone. "Thanks for this." He pressed the talk button and listened as Taurus's phone rang. She grabbed it and held it up so only Monson could see the name. "My Hero" scrolled across the screen. He gave her an inquiring look. She gave him an enigmatic smile. Then she turned and started walking the other way without saying another word, but not without looking over her shoulder, just like before. Derek, watching this exchange, gave Monson a look that plainly told him it was not wise to stick around with Taurus gone. Luckily, a warning bell rang, snapping the remaining students out of their shocked state. Most of them parted, going in different directions to their first period. Derek, however, stood like a statue watching Monson as he walked away. Monson, Artorius, and Casey walked in silence until they were sure they were out of earshot from any other students. Only then did their conversation finally start up again. "Dude, I think we just found the main antagonist." Casey looked back in the direction they had come. "Thinks a lot of himself, that one." "I think we may have seen a glimpse of an initial love interest, too." Artorius had a look close to envy across his face. "Taurus freaking green." "What in the world are you two talking about? You act as if we were in a movie or something." They both laughed as they watched his face. The laughing continued while Monson used the time to try and figure out what was so funny. Nothing came to mind, so he waited. "Right on, Grey." Artorius gestured over at Casey. "Goonie boy over there wants to be a filmmaker, novelist, and mangaka. He always talks like that. You better be careful. He's probably already working on a screenplay for the story of your life.
I couldn't do that, bro.
He gave the same look of exaggerated contrition that he used when he was talking to Mahler. Monson waited patiently for the punchline. When none came, "Okay, I'll play along. Why can't you write the story?"
Dude, isn't that obvious?
No, not really. Casey gave another look, this one a mix of pity and understanding.
Dude, I can't write the story because I'm the main character. That would just be tacky.
Wait, what? Monson ran his hand through his hair. How can you be the main character in the story of my life? Wouldn't I be the main character?
Well, traditionally, yeah, but I demoted you because you're so boring.
That comment warranted Casey a smack on the arm. They all laughed, dispelling some of the tension that was building. So, if I'm not the main character, what am I?
Comedic relief, bro. Don't worry, I'll give you some good one-liners.
Thanks. Monson sped up his pace as they all walked towards their first class.
You've been listening to the podcast-only novel of The House of Grey by Collin Earl. For more news, information, and updates, please visit houseofgreybook.com. Music by Figure of Fiends. Visit the band at myspace.com/Figure of Fiends. Cover art for The House of Grey provided by James Thane. More information at THAYN.net.